Welcome back to this session on neural network. In this current session, we are going to discuss on activation function. As the part of introduction, we talked about activation function. We told that in the hidden layer and in the output layer, whatever may be the input is coming to the particular layer. First of all, the summarization is being done, and then some activation function is implemented before sending the data to the next layer. So activation function, it is also known as transfer function. It translates the input signal to output signal, and generally what it does, whatever may be the output that is being generated from the last layer or earlier layer, what it does, it makes some changes on it so that the output value ranges between 0 to 1 or -1 to 1. That means that whatever may be the output was coming, say if I just go back again and if I draw the input layers, say I have these three input layers and I have three inputs. Again I am drawing the same thing. So three input features, x1, x2 and x3. Okay, when it is coming to the hidden layer, so first of all what is being done, it is the summarization is being done. Okay, and I am assuming another bias term called b1. So if that is the case, then the summarization will be something like that: w1 x1 plus w2 x2 plus w3 x3 plus b1. Okay, so if this is the next layer, if I assume, then maybe these x1, x2, x3 are coming and these weights are being multiplied and the bias is also coming. So this is the, if I do the summarization of everything, then this is the result. Okay, so when this outcome is going to be sent to the next layer, say this is my output layer. Okay, so before sending to this output layer, this summarized result is being sent through some activation function. And what this activation function does, generally whatever may be the total output, by summarizing the results from the previous layer, it generates some different outcome based on using some function on it. So as I was giving example in the earlier session, that say if this total of this summarized data, say if it is 10, and if my activation function is like multiplying everything with 3, then whatever is the outcome, means say 10 is the summarization result, so this 3 will be multiplied with this here. After summation, this 10 value is being multiplied with 3 and the result 30 is going to be sent as output from this layer. So activation function is something where I am implementing some function on the data that is being received from the previous layer. Now there are different types of functions that can be used. Now what is the main use of this activation function? Because as I told that most of the activation functions, you will find that it will generate the result in a range. Okay, so if I am saying that say from 0 to 1, if that is the range, then if it is a binary classification, then I may assume that when the result is from 0 to 0.5, I will go for the option no, and when the result is from 0.5 to 1, I will go with the option yes. So if it is binary classification, say no and yes. So I am just modifying the output in such a way that it is always giving me result in a known and particular range, so that the threshold can be implemented on it to divide it in two groups or multiple groups based on my requirement. Now there are different types of activation functions. They are threshold function, sigmoid function, hyperbolic tangent function, rectifier function, softmax function. Okay, so we'll have discussion on them separately. Okay, so this is the threshold function. It is the simple one. If you just see the diagram, you will understand that, say, this is my x-axis, this is my y-axis, and the possible values of y, there are only two values. One is the value 1, another is 0. So what you get more information about this, that when the value of x is anything between any value at the left side to 0, then the y value is 0, and when the value of x is more than 0 to any value, then the y axis value is 1. So here you can understand that for a particular set of values of x, this y value can have only two possible values, 0 and 1. That's why it is known as a threshold function. Now it is a step function because it is generating only two possible outcomes, 0 and 1. It is a rigid, straightforward yes or no function, and it is useful for binary classification because as the outcome is always 0 or 1, so maybe whenever you are getting the outcome 1, you will put it in a one class, and when the outcome is 0, you can put it in another class. So that's why threshold function is useful for binary classification. Okay, now let us move on. Now it is a little different from threshold function. So you know that threshold function is very much rigid. It cannot reflect any change in the x value, means whenever I am making any change to the x value, I can see any change in the y value. It's not like that, because the y value is only 0 or 1 in case of threshold. Now this is another version, another different activation function, that is sigmoid function. Now if you follow this diagram, you will be able to understand that here the value of y is ranging between 0 to 1, but it can have any value between 0 and 1. Okay, so like for a particular value of x, means for a range of value of x, it is 0, then it is changing, and again after a value of x, say if x equal to 5, y becomes 1. Okay, if you just follow here, you can see that say this is x equal to 5. So when x equal to 5, y equal to 1, and as you go forward, means as you are making changes to the x value, means you are gradually increasing x from 5 to 10, 20, 50, whatever, y value is fixed at 1. Okay, at the same time, when you are reducing the value of x from 5 to 0, then 0 to -1, -2, you can see that this curve is reducing, right? But at one point it is becoming constant. So it is having a range at the one upper range of x and one lower range of x where y becomes constant. But in between, you can always see change for y whenever you are making change for x. So as it is ranging from 0 to 1, so generally sigmoid function helps you to predict the probability of an output. Okay, it is a smooth gradual progression from 0 to 1. So that is the difference with the threshold function, because in threshold function it's a step function, you have the outcome as either 0 or 1. But here in sigmoid function you have the outcome, any outcome between 0 and 1. So that is the difference. It is very useful in the output layer and is heavily used for linear regression. So sigmoid function we already used in linear regression, and as it is generating outcome, any outcome between 0 and 1, that's why it is very useful in the output layer to generate the outcome, means the predict the outcome. So you can use it for predicting that what may be the outcome value based on this using the function outcome. Non-linear in nature has a smooth gradient. So it's non-linear, okay, and it has a smooth gradient. What does that mean? That smooth gradient, here if you follow the curve, you can see that as I am making change to the x value, I am getting a change in the y value. So that is the smooth gradient. But at a particular value of x in the negative axis, or at a particular value of x in the positive axis, you can see that when at this range, you can understand that whenever I am making change to the x value, I am not getting much difference in the y value. At the same time, here if you follow, if I make change to the x value, means if I just reduce the value of x, means I am going in the negative direction, but the y value will be same. So that is called as vanishing gradient problem. So here at the both end you have the vanishing gradient problem. Okay, otherwise it has a smooth gradient, and it is generally used in the output layer of the neural network. Okay, now it is another function that is known as hyperbolic tangent function. So here how it is working, instead of 0 and 1, here the range is from -1 to 1. Otherwise it is similar to your sigmoid function. If you just again check the sigmoid curve, so it is something where the curve is falling from, means it is starting from 0, it is moving, and then at 1 it becomes constant. So the value of 1 is y is ranging from 0 to 1. But for this hyperbolic tangent function, the range is from -1 to 1. Okay. So it is very similar to sigmoid function. Value goes below 0 from -1 to 1. Now where it will find its application, because when you are seeing the x value, here you can see that in case of sigmoid function, as we are moving to the negative axis, the y value is always 0, right? So y becomes constant for different negative values of x. Okay, but here if you check this function, you can see that as I am going in the negative axis, means when I am reducing the value of x from 0 to -1, -2 and so on, that there is a change in the y value up to -1. So I am getting some reflection of changes for the negative values of x, which is not present in the sigmoid function, right? So when you have some inputs which are mostly negative, so if that is the case, then sigmoid function has not much difference. But if you use this tangent function, you can get some effect, or you can get some output based on the negative input value. So that is the importance of using this function. So 0 input will be mapped to near 0, negative input will be in the negative side, and positive input will be in the positive side. So here if you use this function, then your negative input and positive input has some impact on the outcome. Okay. Then comes another function which is actually a very popular function, that is the rectifier function. So here it is actually very simple. Instead of this type of calculations for calculating the value of y, here you can see how this y value is calculated. If you go sigmoid, then how it is calculated. So it is the exponential and power, division, everything is there. It's a complex calculations are there. But if you see rectifier function, it is very simple. Here if you follow this curve, you will understand that up to the value of x equal to 0, y equal to 0. And as x is moving from 0 towards the positive axis, then the value of y is equal to x. So I can again conclude that when x less than equal to 0, y equal to 0. And when x greater than 0, then y equal to x. So here when I am calculating the value of y based on the value of x, it is a very straightforward and simple function. So that is why it is the most popular activation function, and it is most efficient. Why efficient? Because here the calculation is simple. Smooth and gradual after the kink at 0. So when you reach 0, and then as you are moving in the positive axis, you can see that it is a smooth, because it is a straight line only, and whenever you are making some changes in the x value, you are getting reflection in the y value very prominently, very clearly. This function does not require normalization or other complicated calculation because it is a very simple function. Now, it is popularly known as ReLU, and ReLU stands for rectified linear unit. Now, it is not exactly a linear function. Why? Because if it was only y equal to x, then we could see that okay, it's a linear function. But here it's not like that, right? Because when your x value is 0 or less than 0, then y is always 0. That's why it is not exactly a linear function. Okay. Now, what is dying ReLU? Dying ReLU is downside for being 0 for all negative values. So, the advantage I am getting is in the positive axis, right? So, when the value of x is greater than 0, then I am getting, every time I am making change to the x value, I am getting a reflection in the y value. But when your x value is 0 or less than 0, then y is always 0. I am not getting any reflection of x value change in the negative direction in the y value. That's why it is known as dying ReLU, because downside for being 0 for all negative values. So, whenever you have negative value for x, you are always getting 0 in the y. So, this problem is known as dying ReLU. Okay. Now, the features about the rectifier function, it is cheap to compute as there is no complicated mathematics. It is a very simple calculation, less time to train, as it is a simple function is being used. It's only, it is only maximum of 0 and x when we are calculating y. So, that's why it is very easy to train. Slope does not saturate when x gets larger. So, you have seen in sigmoid function or in tangent function that after a particular value of x, y becomes 1. Constantly y will be 1. But here it's not like that, because here as you are increasing the value of x, you are getting an increase in the value of y. It can constantly increase. So, there is no stoppage here. Okay. It does not have the vanishing gradient problem. Of course, in the positive side, there is no vanishing gradient, right? So, whenever you are making some changes in the positive direction for the x, you are getting a change in the y value. Sparsely activated. ReLU is 0 for all negative inputs. So, whenever you are talking about this gradient and how smooth it is, how y is responding to the x value, this is all about in the positive axis, because in the negative axis, whatever may be the value of x, I am always getting 0 as the output. Okay, that's why it is known as sparsely activated. Better predictive power and less overfitting. Now, what is that that we are trying to say? That when you have lot of neurons and the signal is going from one neuron to another, right? But it is not always required that the signal should be sent from all neurons to all possible neurons in the second layer. So, it should only send communication when it is relevant. So, say one layer of neuron or one particular node that is looking for data which is about a cat. So, if I am sending a picture of a table, and then if that information is flowing, that need not be passed through that node set, right? Because that node is looking for cat data. Now, if I have sent a table picture, then the information should not be flown to that node. Okay, so that is why this type of function actually helps. Here the unnecessary communication is not being done. Here the one neuron to another neuron communication can be avoided when it is not required. So that's why it is being shown that it is a less overfitting or less noise. Unnecessary communication, unnecessary data flow from one layer to another layer of nodes can be avoided by using this rectifier function. Okay, now this ReLU has different variants also present. So this is the basic form of ReLU that we have seen, where I have x equal to 0 and less than 0, I have y always value, y value is 0, and when x is increasing after 0, then y is equal to x. That is the basic ReLU, but it has some variants, so we will have some discussion on them as well. Okay, so the first two are leaky ReLU and parametric ReLU or PReLU. So what is the difference with the basic version? You can see here that in the positive axis it remains the same, that is y equal to x, but in the negative axis, if you just follow the leaky ReLU line, means the pink line, you can see earlier it was y equal to 0, right? Whatever may be the value of x in the negative direction, we always put y equal to 0, but here in leaky ReLU we are putting y equal to 0.01x, means I'm just multiplying a small value with x, so that you can see instead of 0 I'm getting a different value of y, and it is a changing value, right? So as I am changing the value of x, I can see a change in the y value as well. So there was the vanishing gradient problem in the negative axis, but now it is not like that. Here I can see the reflection of change in the x value in the negative axis in the calculation of the y value. Now instead of using this say 0.01x, so 0.01 is a constant value, so instead of a constant value, if some parameter is used, then this leaky ReLU, it is known as parametric ReLU, where I have used y equal to ax. So these two are actually the same concept. Only thing is that in case of leaky ReLU I am using a constant, and in case of parametric ReLU, instead of using a constant value I am using a parameter. So I can supply different values for the parameter, and the behavior, that how the line is going in the negative direction, means how y value is changing with x, that change rate I can control with this parameter. So leaky ReLU, small slope for negative values instead of altogether 0, and parametric ReLU, parameter introduced in the calculation. So this leaky ReLU and parametric ReLU, they fix the dying ReLU problem. So what was the dying ReLU problem? That in the negative axis, when I am decreasing the value of x below 0, I am not seeing any reflection in the y value. But in leaky ReLU and parametric ReLU, when I am putting the x value in the negative direction, I can see some change in the y as well. Leaky ReLU more balanced and learn faster. Okay, so leaky ReLU is something which is becoming popular. Now there is another type of ReLU that is known as exponential linear unit, LU, or sometimes it is known as ACLU as well. So here what is the difference? Again the positive axis is same, that is y equal to x, but in the negative axis there is some exponential function is used. So here you can see y equal to a into e to the power x minus 1. So in case of leaky ReLU and parametric ReLU, it was only some constant value or some parameter value I am multiplying with x and calculating y, but here it is not linear, because here I am using exponential function. So you can see this green line, it is not a straight line, but it's a curve, right? So that is the difference with the leaky ReLU. So this is designed to combine the good parts of ReLU and leaky ReLU. Don't have the dying ReLU problem, of course, because the y value is not constant in the negative axis of x, but it is changing constantly. At the same time, it is not a straight line, right? It is a curve, as we are using the exponential function. Saturates for large negative values, allowing them to be essentially inactive. So you can see here as the curve is moving, so as we are moving to the more negative values, gradually this y becomes constant, okay, due to the function I have used. But when you are always multiplying a constant with x, then that will be kind of a straight line and that will constantly move. But maybe my intention is that okay, I want change in the y axis for the x values, but say after minus 20 or after minus 50 I don't want much change, then I can use this function. So saturates for large negative values you have seen, allowing them to be essentially inactive. So maybe for my particular application I really want that there should not be much change when x is going for a large negative value. I want y to be constant, then I should use this function. Sometimes it is called scaled LU due to the constant factor a, okay, that's why it is known as SELU also. Okay. Now there is another version of ReLU that is known as ReLU 6. So it is actually similar to ReLU, only difference is that it is like after a value of x equal to 6, y becomes constant, means y will not be indefinitely increasing with the increasing value of x. So when x equal to 2, y equal to 2, x equal to 4, y equal to 4, x equal to 6, y equal to 6, but if I put x equal to 8, x equal to 10, then still y equal to 6. So after some time the line becomes constant, so that is known as ReLU 6. There is another function which is becoming popular nowadays, that is known as softmax function. So it is something you can see the graph, this blue line, if you follow you can see that for the inputs up to some point the outcome is 0 and then gradually it is increasing, but it's a curved line, it is not a straight line. So maps output to a 0 to 1 range. So here you can see that the outcome starting from 0, say for up to the value of input equal to 15, it is 0 and then it is gradually increasing and it is moving upwards and the maximum value possible is 1. So that's why the range is 0 to 1, total sum of output equal to 1. Okay, what does that mean? That I will calculate the output, say there are some different outcomes, okay, because its application is in mainly multinomial logistic regression, where you have multiple classes are there and you have to put your output in a particular class. So for that you can use it, that is the one very important use of it, because it is as it is a probability distribution, means the probability can be from 0 to 1. Say you have 3 outcomes, okay, if I just give one example. So say I have 3 possible types of outcomes, means say my I am just predicting the color, it can be red, it can be blue, or it can be green. Okay, I have been given with some inputs and I have to decide what may be the color of this. So how I am doing this? Through the artificial neural network I am using this activation function, say softmax activation function. I am trying to calculate the probability of these 3 outcomes, and this probability will always be, the total will be 1. Okay, the calculation will help me so that the total probability will be 1. So say the outcome for my whatever the input I have given, the outcome is, say here it is for red it is coming as 0.6, for blue it is coming as say not 3, okay, 0.3, and green is 0.1. So the total is 1. So if I see this outcome, then I can decide that as red has the maximum probability, so I will say that my test data, it is actually red. So this is how this softmax activation function works. So this is the mathematical representation. It may look a little bit complicated, but it is nothing but actually it is like the set of outcomes that we get. We calculate the exponential of that outcome and divide it by the total exponential outcome of all the outcomes, and then we calculate the probability, and based on that we decide that in which class the particular input should be put. And this function is generally used in the final layer of a neural network based classifier. So why in final layer? Because this algorithm, this function can help us to decide that like my input should be put in which particular class. So after these calculations it will give me something like that, means the total probability will be 1, and I will get this type of data from this outcome of the softmax activation function, and then I can decide that as this class, say it has the maximum probability, so I can put my input in this class. So that way the softmax function can help in the output layer. So generally it is used in the output layer or final layer of the neural network. So as we move on, we will have some different discussions using some data hands on, then we will use different activation functions. So that way we can have better idea, but for now we should be clear that these are the activation functions. The use of activation function is like to convert the outcome so that it can be easily fed in the next layer, and it can decide something in the next layer, whether it's a hidden layer and whether it's a output layer. And there are different functions starting from threshold function. If I just go back once more, okay, so this is the threshold function where I have the outcome only 0 and 1. Then I have sigmoid function where the outcome is ranging from 0 to 1, but any value between 0 to 1 can be there. Then I have this hyperbolic tangent function where my outcome ranges from -1 to 1. And then I have this rectifier function where the outcome is 0 for a particular range of values for x, that is up to 0, and from 0 to any value y is x, that is the ReLU. And ReLU has different varieties, that is leaky ReLU, parametric ReLU, then we have this exponential linear unit or ELU, and then we have this ReLU 6 also. So these are the variants of ReLU that can be used based on our requirements. And then we have the softmax function, which is very useful in the output layer because it helps us to identify my input exactly in which output bucket it should be put in case of multinomial logistic regression problems. So that is about the activation functions, and in the next session we'll start with the different architectures of neural networks. So for now we will stop here. Thank you very much for listening.